All right, welcome everybody. We're, as usual, better late than never. I was having minor, they're not even technical difficulties. They're more just me still not knowing what I'm doing with these programs to go live with. So, we're live. Today was okay, not the greatest day. Yesterday was a phenomenal day. It was a good week. Let's spread the word right away. I'm going to ask everybody to smash the like button, please. We go for 100 likes. We're at, looks like at 19 right now. So if you guys could help us out, let's get this stream going. We got a lot to talk about. I think we labeled this related to SBF. His conviction came in, but a lot more than that happened. This is, as always, this is a Bitcoin mining channel. Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, that's what we talk about. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And an awful lot went on this week. So lots to talk about.
You knew the sell-off was coming for CleanSpark, huh? Told you.
They pumped huge yesterday, and a couple of, in specific, to me, CleanSpark and Marathon got beat up today. So they had great days yesterday, and I won't say everything. Almost everything had a great day yesterday. Yesterday, Bitcoin didn't really have a great day. The Bitcoin miners had a big day, and this was the start of hopefully something that we've been talking about and waiting for a long time, which is for the Bitcoin miners start to make their run and catch up to the gigantic lag that they've had behind Bitcoin. Yesterday, they definitely did that. Today, Bitcoin was down. Most of the Bitcoin miners did okay, but CleanSpark down 4%, Marathon down 4.5%. Those two seem to get beat up, so we'll talk about why. We'll discuss. We'll get your opinion.
Southwest Florida time just got a new billionaire.
Another one?
Yep.
Who?
Bezos. Have you heard of him? Bezos?
Yeah, I think we've all heard of Bezos.
I just found that interesting.
Did he get a house in the area? What happened?
Yeah, someplace in they say Miami, but it's probably not Miami. You know that.
Well, it could be the East Coast gets their share of.
Yeah, no, but you know what I'm saying though. It's probably not right in Miami. Maybe it's South Beach, Miami. I guess it is.
There's some spots in Miami that are ultra high rent district. There's some other spots in Miami that, I probably wouldn't want to walk the streets alone at night. So, like most cities, I think the same thing can be said for most of the major cities in the U.S. You guys can speak for the rest of the world. I know we have people from all around the world on our stream. So, welcome everybody from wherever you may be.
Yeah, I can't believe Sam. I have a theory about Sam Bankman-Fried. I bet you he gets pardoned.
Aha.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to say it.
We will stay tuned.
I remember that statement, guys. 11-3-2-3, he gets pardoned.
I think I have a feeling I know why you suspect that could happen. They got a lot more. I think sentencing is set for late March. Actually, just before the halving. So,
right.
Not that one thing has absolutely anything to do with the other at all.
You just don't know, though, with crypto. You just don't know what they're gonna use to take it out or pump it even.
I guess that is true.
Like, who ever thought Solana would be pumping right now? I'm just in shock with that still today.
I don't get it.
I changed my password on my account so I couldn't sell my CleanSpark. So I can never sell my CleanSpark.
You what?
I changed the password on my account so I can't sell my CleanSpark.
So you can't even get in and sell it? You're just going to have to wait it out. FV702 back on track. Miners and Bitcoin, please. Are you asking us to get back on track, FV702?
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. He's probably mad at me. Sorry.
What did we talk? What, Sam Bankman, SBF?
Yeah. No, probably because I mentioned about Bezos moving.
Ah. FV702.
Aaron, you got 160,000 shares of CleanSpark? I'm not worthy. I thought my little 100,000 shares was a lot. I don't have 100,000 shares.
Oh, Darren, 160K shares of CleanSpark. Yeah, that's a big position. So today was not your favorite day, but yesterday probably was. I mean, yesterday CleanSpark was up 12.5% in one day. So, yes, this is a pullback. Bitcoin, you can see, so I'll do my usual thing. For those of you who are new to the channel or who don't know, there's, as always, a gold line where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. So that would have been the end of the day Thursday. So I like to, that's the comparative note because we were looking at the miners, obviously they close when the equity markets close. Now, they trade after hours, all that other stuff. But, so to compare apples to apples, Bitcoin was over $15,000 when the market closed yesterday. So from there to here, you know, this was not a gigantic move, but let's go to the closing candle, which was here. So this is where the equity markets closed today. So Bitcoin was down 1.3% today. So really, I would have expected a very red board today, but the Bitcoin miners, by and large, have had 2 days in a row that they've been behaving better than Bitcoin. The exception to that being CleanSpark had a rough day today. Marathon had a rough day today. Some of the super small caps, GREE was down 3.5%, but you'll see a lot of green on this board. Nothing was to the moon, but Hive was up 1.2%. Riot, which is the largest by market cap, was up 0.8%. CIFR, which is the third largest by market cap, up 3.8%. BitDeer up 4.45%, although BitDeer's its own conversation. That activity is all over the place. But you'll see more green than red on a day where Bitcoin was down. And that's after a day where the Bitcoin miners just went off yesterday. So let's see. I think we're gonna need everybody's help. We're gonna ask you guys if you would be so kind to smash the like button. This is by far our smallest live stream.
It's because you were late. Everybody left.
Not that I'm
impatient.
I was my normal 2 or 3 minutes late. I blame myself for that.
Dude, BlackRock started buying some EV stocks like FCEL, BLNK, ChargePoint, Tesla today. I'm sure. Dude, I would expect that they're going to have to give money to the whole EV industry. Because if not, it's going out of business.
Here's the one thing that I would caution everybody before they get too excited about that exact list that you just named, other than Tesla. Companies like FCEL, ChargePoint, the small cap risk-on stocks, they've done this to us between 8 to 10 times this year. They'll have a day, sometimes back-to-back days, where they're up, and they don't make small moves, up 15%, 20%, 30%. I saw some up 40%. But remember, when you're down 97%, up 40% sounds fantastic. And if you happen to buy at the low, it is fantastic. But it's actually a tiny, tiny move in the grand scheme of things versus where your stock is from a historical standpoint. And usually when that happens, we have those days out of left field. And yesterday, I will tell you, I couldn't find... I have, 35 or 40 different watch lists. They range. My small ones have 5 or 6 stocks on them. Some of them have 50 stocks on them. Almost every single stock on every watch list that I have was green yesterday. Every single stock that I own in every single account that I own was green yesterday. It was one of those days. I got out of, I'll just give an example. I hold a small position in a company called Li-Cycle. For those of you who are members, we did a members-only video. I did take a position out in that. That has gone not well at all. Out of the blue, that company basically, and I drilled down and actually read an article from the local newspaper, basically talking to the guy in charge of the union for everybody that works on that job. Even that guy, they showed up one Monday morning and there was a sign just telling everybody to go home. So they were in the middle of what was supposed to be building the largest lithium battery recycling center in the world, and they put a sign up said, delayed it indefinitely, go home. So, people were stunned, and the stock was down 50% in a few hours. So yesterday, the stock was up 25% for no reason. And so I got, for me personally, again, not financial advice. I'm not telling you to get in. I'm not telling you to get out. But I took an opportunity when things went stupid like they did yesterday. I shifted a few things around a little bit based on that. But I would not expect, to me, this is not a sign of things to come. I don't think ChargePoint all of a sudden is going to go on a big run. I think ChargePoint is going to continue to do what they've done. They've hit their all-time low at least 50 times this year. And even after the little run-up they just had, I would say chances are, in my opinion, they will hit their all-time low again several more times before the year is over. That is my opinion. Even if we're back risk on, some of these companies are just, the underlying business models are not doing well. So I guess we'll see what happens. We don't know. We can't know, until we get there. But I think yesterday was in some ways a little bit of a one-off for certain things. In some ways, a little bit of a turning a corner. So we may be moving into risk on. And there are some reasons. The Fed talked. So this is our first live stream since the Fed spoke, so we should talk about what's happening there, because I was actually, for the first time, so no surprise they did not raise rates. There was, the day before, there was actually a 100% chance built into the futures that they would not raise rates. There was a 3% chance that they were going to lower rates. We talked on our members-only live stream. That is a pipe dream. That was not going to happen yesterday. So they didn't raise rates, but what they did do, I thought Jerome Powell was, you didn't have to read too far between the lines to realize they have no intention of raising rates again. And, he can't come out and say those words. But if you care to go back, there was a question that Steve Leisman asked him from CNBC, and he asked it 3 times. And Jerome Powell tried to dance around it as best he could, because in the past, the Fed has been, they have been biased towards raising rates 1 to 2 more times. And Steve Leisman asked him, based on all the words you're saying, it sounds like the Fed does not have that bias anymore at this point. And he tried not to answer the question, and then he said, well, we update our scatter point chart and all that stuff every few months, so that'll be coming out in December, and you can look at it in December. In my mind, i.e., we're not raising rates anymore. So the one thing they can cling to is, higher for longer. That's their new little catchphrase that, they're going to leave them higher, but circumstances on the ground are going to dictate that. The jobs report came out today. That was some more information that I think helps them support not raising rates. And I'll show you guys this one real quick.
As you do that, Tom, I have a real quick question.
Yeah, go right ahead,
If we go to war,
George.
does that help the market or hurt the market?
I think that's going to war, in my mind, in the very short term, is obviously that's a negative thing. It also creates a lot of uncertainty. So I would think that, without back testing this, I would think that would not be a good thing for the market. It may be a good thing for certain things like gold, and we'll see, if Bitcoin has started to be one of those things. Bitcoin's been acting that way lately. So we'll see. Hopefully, there's not gigantic escalations here in the violence, but that obviously these geopolitical things do loom over our heads, and they loom over the market, and we don't know. It'll be a true test to see where, what direction Bitcoin is going in. But I do think it's crystal clear to me that Bitcoin's behaving differently in the last, really coming up on 100 days now. And I think this is a step closer to reaching that maturity level that, it's nowhere near done growing and getting full adoption and acceptance and being mature, but I think it's taking big steps in that direction, and it's starting to behave in ways it hasn't behaved in the past that are positive. So, my opinion. Laura said Fubo guidance is very bullish. Fubo's another one I would be very careful with. I love their service. I don't have their service. They've been on my radar since they went public. I love what they do. To me, it seems like they should be a company that's great, but they are a money-losing machine. So they just are. They've lost a massive amount of money. Let's go there. Here's my PayPal. I won't even get into that. I will tell you on the members-only stream, people were booing at me when I mentioned PayPal, but they did have a good earnings report. This is 2 days. They had a big update yesterday. They followed it up with a nice update today. I think there's a lot of upside left in PayPal. You guys will probably all give me the thumbs down on that again, and that's fine. Everybody's free to have their own opinion. This is not financial advice. I'm certainly not telling anybody or recommending anybody buy PayPal. You can drop in the chat if you think this stock is garbage like almost everybody else does, or if you think it's worth taking a shot on. I think it's oversold epically. That's my personal opinion. Whether or not, a lot of people have anecdotal things, and they've had a bad experience with PayPal's service, and to me, I try to do my best to steer clear of those types of things affecting my business or not, my investment decisions. And
really?
Yes, because I try to look, I'm a financial driven person here, reading the financial statements, reading the 10Ks, the 10Qs, reading, digging into what's going on. To me, those macro things are how I invest. So there's things I invest in that I don't use PayPal. I stopped using them a long time ago. I don't use PayPal. I will say I use Venmo, and guess what? That's PayPal. So, and they have an enterprise level product as well. They've got good things going. Now they got a brand new CEO. We'll see what happens. I'm not saying this, like I said, I'm not recommending this. I am in this, and it just had a nice little bump. So, it's certainly not off to the moon. It's still at historic lows. I mean, this is at 5 or 6 or 7 year lows right now.
Is there a chance they could go out of business?
No. This company makes money. They're cash flow positive. Okay. They make money hand over fist. Now, they had a couple of years where they made even more money than they're making right now, and it pulled back a little bit. But it's still here. I'll just do the cheat sheet and show you. Like this is a $56 company. They made $4 a share last year. It looks like they're on track for $4.64, and they beat estimates, so they're doing better than this. Next year, analysts, and this isn't 1 or 2 or 5 analysts. This is 40 analysts that cover this. So, you see $4.64. They're going to beat that, in my opinion. And $5.27 next year, that puts them very close to a 10 PE on a forward basis. This is not a company that deserves a 10 PE. This is nothing. They've never had a PE like that until recently. So, I think it's worth. It's always a risk-reward situation. I think it's worth it. Craig is saying, you're right, Tom. Crap company, but the stock is okay.
I got to get a heater. I'm freezing.
Barry saying, PayPal was Tom's #1 financial advice members pick for the week. That's not true, Barry, and you know it. We did talk about it. David is asking about CleanSpark's October mining report, so we will definitely go through that. Several companies have put out their October report. The other big thing that's going to happen in the coming weeks, I put a little schedule together. It's not all inclusive, but a lot of these Bitcoin miners are about to put out their 3-month ended September 30th financial statements. To me, those are going to be hugely important. I follow the monthly operational reports obviously very closely, and we get some nice information in those. This is one of the things I like about the Bitcoin miners. They do keep you in the loop, some at a much more detailed level than others, but there's no hiding it. Once you put your 10Q out, there's no hiding anymore. We get to see right in the financial statements what was your actual cost per coin, not what you said it was in your monthly update, not, because this is included, that's excluded, this is our energy cost, this is what it would have been in a perfect world. A lot of companies play a lot of those type of games in their, I'm calling them games. They're, all I'm saying is the monthly updates are helpful, but they are by no means the level of detail and held to the same scrutiny as the quarterlies. And then obviously the 10K is audited. So, if you're doing your 10Qs wrong, you're going to have a problem at your 10K. So I rely on those more, and we're about to get a lot of those. And the number one thing that I'm looking for in all of those is what's their real cost per coin? What's their actual, in their financial statements, in the 3 months that just ended, what's everybody's cost per coin? Because I can tell you, typically, there's anywhere from a small difference to a big difference between what these people report in their monthly reports and what their actual all-in cash cost per coin is. And so I exclude non-cash items, as I think does everybody throughout the industry. I'm not talking about depreciation, amortization. I'm not talking about, non-cash compensation, all those types of things. I'm trying to look at what's the actual cash cost for these companies to mine the next Bitcoin, because that's how they decide. Are we going to have all of our machines on? Are we going to, there's moment-to-moment decision-making process based on these real-time costs. So that's going to be my number one thing. And the cost per coin varies pretty substantially from Bitcoin miner to Bitcoin miner. So, that is one of the major factors. Are these companies managing their cost per coin? Because one of the things that's going against all of these companies is the network difficulty level is going through the roof. So, obviously the higher that is, the more energy it takes to mine a coin. So these companies have done, in my opinion, most of the big Bitcoin mining companies have done a very, very good job of getting a handle on those energy costs and other related costs. So that's what I want to see. Where's everybody at the end of September? How does it compare to where they were at the end of June? These trends, the more we now have a bigger, every single quarter that goes by, we have a bigger sample group to start to see trends inside of company by company, because most of these companies are still almost, I won't call them brand new, but they're very new. Most of the U.S. companies just started mining Bitcoin in this cycle. So, they're now at the end of 2023, they've been mining for 2 years or 2.5 years, some of them 3 years, but even somebody like Marathon, they can say they've been mining for 3 years, but they had 0.1 exahash 3 years ago. So, yes, technically they were a Bitcoin miner. Same thing for CleanSpark. In December of 2020, they were at 0.1 exahash, less than 0.1 exahash. So, these are all pretty new companies. So every quarter matters as far as getting, information.
Question.
Yes.
Have you heard of what's the shorts on any right now? Somebody was back there talking about that. Do you think there could be a pump on any?
I have not taken a look at the shorts on any. I have paid close attention to what they're doing financially. I haven't looked at the short position, so I don't know. That's a nano cap stock at this point. We'll take a quick look.
Yeah, it's getting small, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and for a reason. So this is now a $12 million market cap company.
Wow. Remember when we said, oh, we don't go below 25 million?
And so many of them are below that now. So, and I don't
know.
spend much time talking about the Ennies of the world. They're, even though I like new management, they had a total change at the top of this company. They have a new CEO. They ditched all of their, what I will call, my personal opinion, they had a bunch of plans that were, in my opinion, nonsense, nothing short of nonsense, and that's probably being generous. For those of you who remember some of the press releases that they put out, you could probably use a bunch of different words that are much worse than that. I won't use any of those words. But this is a company who put out a press release. By now, they were supposed to be at 32 exahash with a machine that, when they announced it a year and a half ago, would have been better than still the S21s that are coming out right now. So, right, none of that ended up happening. So, hence, nonsense. And, they're not at 32 exahash. They're not at, well, I think actually they may have worked their way up to 1 exahash now or something in that neighborhood. But my fear with these guys, too little, too late. I'm not sure how they get through the halving. In the members only, if you guys want to do a vote on this and hear more of a deep dive, I can dig into this. But I'm guessing very, very few of you are invested in this Bitcoin miner. While we're at it, let's do a poll, George. What's going on?
I don't know. Bitcoin, start with your Bitcoin pricing.
Right. We need to get a handle, because let's see where people are at. We try to ask a few of similar polls on a weekly basis to just try to gauge sentiment, from week to week. So, trying to keep them simple to yes or no answers. So, we'll start with a simple one. Will Bitcoin hit $40,000 by the end of 2023? So,
I'm changing my answer.
That is 2 months from now. A little bit less than 2 months from now. Call it 2 months from now. So we did hit overnight a couple of nights ago. We bounced off of 36,000. So, it's striking distance. But we're already, that was the high of the year. The previous high of the year was around 31,800, a little higher. That was back in July. It took us a long time to get back to that. We've gotten back to that. We've blown through that, and we're now pretty solidly in the $34,000 to $35,000 range. I think Bitcoin's done an outstanding job of holding on to that range. We'll take a look at some of the technicals. Edmund saying, Tom, we don't tune in to listen to PayPal and EVs, period. I'm just going to say this to everybody. We do about a 2 or 2.5 hour stream. We spend probably somewhere between 95 and 97% of the time talking about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. If you guys are going to get angry for the 1 or 2 minutes we spend talking about something else, I take exception to that. So I would ask for 30 seconds of patience, right? I spend 40 or 50 hours a week on this. If we're going to talk about, right, Bitcoin is not the whole entire universe. If you guys get mad at me for saying this, then so be it. But, you know, come on. That's what I would say. Come on, guys. We got 2.5 hours we're chatting. I think we could talk about something for 30 seconds or a minute. If you don't like that, I don't know what to say. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just, please. It's a mean comment to say something like that.
Tom, I just came back. Were you saying something? Because I wasn't listening because you weren't talking about Bitcoin miners.
And now I'm spending even more time not talking about Bitcoin miners.
Tom, I changed my vote to yes to 40,000, by the way. If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have been a no. Now I'm a yes.
George has changed his vote.
Until they take out Tether or any of those guys, I'm on a bull run.
Thank you, Craig and Steven and Sour Melon Gaming, for your comments. I'm trying to be above boards here, and let's all have a happy conversation. We don't need anybody bringing anger to the thing. Enough said. I've said my piece. Ironhead, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think Bitcoin, did you hear that? A bull run.
Bitcoin bull run?
Bull run. I think there's definitely going to be, there's very little support in between now and 43, isn't there, Tom?
There's not too much. If we look at the charts, there's not too much in the way for, from a technical standpoint to stop a nice run to the, I'm on the 15-minute here, but
Listen to that.
What?
No, CVT Dallas just said, I think it'll hit both 20 and 45 by the end of 2023. That's crazy. That would be some movement.
Both 20,000 and 45,000. So, yeah, that's expecting monumental volatility. We haven't seen the likes of that kind of volatility even inside of what's already a super volatile.
No doom and gloom for me right now, guys. No doom and gloom. And you want to hear the dumbest move an investor ever made? Coming up next. I will tell you the dumbest move an investor ever made.
Let's hear it.
That dumb person is me.
I didn't want to ask. I was going to ask, does that happen to be you?
The dumbest.
Oh! I think I know what you're going to say.
yeah, you know what I'm going to say.
Well, was it dumb? Or
no.
It didn't work out that way.
Dumb. It was not dumb at all. I made thousands and thousands of dollars. So,
thank you, Cosmic Contrarian, a couple other people. Tom and George, you are great. Don't let it get to you. Love the channel and the gang. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
I'm with you, Rich, by the way. If Binance collapses, yeah, they're doing everything they can to make it, but the guy has 9 lives.
For a long time, I was very worried about what was going on with Binance and CZ, but they have come at him every way possible. And now it's starting to seem like, one by one, all this stuff, the SEC, all this mud they were slinging around is going the other way on them. Right? They're losing more than they're winning. And by more, I don't think they've won anything, have they?
No,
So maybe there's not as many potential catastrophes out there as we were led to believe.
There are.
There are, you're saying?
Yeah.
Crypto Rich is saying Binance ain't going anywhere. Tree is saying Bitcoin new all-time high in third quarter 2024 or sooner. I agree with that. Tree, I completely agree with that. So I'm not, it's hard to make these calls. Where's it going to be a month from now, 2 months from now? But But I agree. By that, a third quarter is just, basically a year from now, maybe a little bit less. And I think, 69,000 was the previous all-time high, and I think we will have taken that out by then. That's my personal opinion. JR, the way money flows into these miners seems like the miners under 5 more likely to 10x. I think we're going to see, it depends on what your time frame is, but one of the things that I found interesting was I put a couple of videos out. One was that the Bitcoin miners were going to 3x, and it's been such a rough run over the last kind of 100 days that I thought I was going to get a lot of comments that were more along the lines of, the Bitcoin miners are awful. What makes you think they're going to 3x? But really, I got more comments saying 3x, the Bitcoin miners are going to do a lot better than that. So, I don't know who's right or wrong, but in the short term, but yes, my long-term targets are much more than 3x for the Bitcoin miners that I'm investing in. But I will say what I always say. I don't think every single Bitcoin miner is going to 3x, 5x, 10x. I think there's going to be winners and losers, and I do think the market is speaking to that more and more in the price action of these. I do also think there's a few that are underpriced, and have a lot of room left to the upside. There are some that I don't know if they're properly priced, but there are some that are have already made some of their run. There are some that have gone backwards that I think are still going to, make big runs. Sour Melon Gaming, I want to see a 10x gain on Bitcoin in a single day. Oh, a 10K gain. Yeah, I was going to say 10x isn't going to happen, but 10K in a day, that could happen. That's when the bull run's going to be on. That's when we're going to be on our way to our next new all-time high. So, Darren said, appreciate you, Tom and George. Best channel. Thank you, Darren. We appreciate you. And thank you to all the members. It's much appreciated. Thanks to all the subscribers. I'm saying members. I see a lot of the members in the chat. And, thanks to all the subscribers. I see a lot of familiar names that I know have been with us for a long time. And I see some new names. So welcome to those people who are new here. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. We do tend to cover the Bitcoin miners. That's the vast majority of our content on this channel. We used to cover a lot more than that. I do think we will cover a lot more than that in the future. I just think right now, this is what's going on. So this is what we're doing. Darren's asking, is the dip before the halving over? I think that depends very, very much on whether or not, what the price action is on Bitcoin. Because that's going to have an awful lot to do with how these miners perform. Where's Bitcoin going to be at the halving? And that's going to be our next question. Let's end this first vote. Will Bitcoin hit 40K by the end of 2023? Which is just 2 months from now. So we're at 88% think that Bitcoin will hit 40K by the end of the year. George flipped his position. He was a no on this in the past, and he is now a yes. I would also answer yes to this question. We're in striking distance from that. I'm going to go to the chart and just do the math here. I mean, so from where, even after, we've had 2 red candles in a row. This is the daily candle chart. So even after a couple of red candles, we're still trading very much. We had this gigantic run up, and we've traded sideways for 7 or 8 or 9 days here, or whatever it is. But if I go from here up to, I'm going to miss it by up to a 4. So about 15%. That would be a 15% move to the upside sometime between now and the end of the year. So that doesn't mean it's going to close above that. We're just looking to see, are we going to get some 15% to the upside over the next couple of months? Obviously, Bitcoin's very volatile. It moves up and down. So, it may bounce off of that, retest some numbers. We don't know. The technicals, to me, are extremely confusing right now. We've got bull flags. We have bearish divergences. We have, whatever you wanted to prove, you could find your technical to prove it right now. So that, to me, that means we're very, very neutral, and I tend to go with momentum. I mean, momentum is clearly to the upside in the short term. It's to the upside in the short term over the last month. It's even with this big, almost 3-month sideways scenario that we went through, it's still very much, if I zoom out to the year, this was, you know, the 5-year low inside of this cycle. This was FTX right here. This giant move to the downside, that was, you know, November 8th and 9th. That was the FTX situation. We double bottomed a few weeks later. So from that bottom, even if we go from November 21st to now, you know, we're up 123%. We've pulled much more than a double. So is it unthinkable we go up another 15%? I think that is reasonable. And if you look, you know, if you look at the momentum for the last, this is a year ago. This is now, in a few days, FTX will have been 1 full year ago. So today marks the day that kind of somewhat of an ending to the FTX situation, with Sam Bankman-Fried being found guilty on all accounts. Obviously, in my opinion, that will get appealed. This will go on and on. We haven't even gone through sentencing, which is going to be like 5 months from now. So this is not done being in the headlines, but we've long since left behind the, you know, the price action portion of this. So,
all right, welcome to Talkin' Investing.
I thought we'd have more price action from that trial, by the way.
The trial didn't seem to hurt Bitcoin at all. We had a gigantic.
Yeah.
Let me go see. I think
anything
we
that
just
helped
had
it.
Omer, who has been a member for 9 months. So thank you very much for your membership and your support. Hi, Tom. What's your take now on HUT with the merger about to close? They have a huge HODL stack. Thanks. And they also had some big, well, they put out a press release today. I was going to say I was going to say they had some big news hit, but it's not news yet. It's a step in the right direction. And so I just want to, let me see if I can find that, because I think this is a very big deal. It hasn't happened yet. It's still up in the air, but I think it's likely to happen, but it's not a given. Let me tell you what I'm talking about, and so that I'm not being cryptic. Let me find this press release.
I think this is... don't get me going.
On
HUT.
I gotta find this. I opened a million things. I will find. Give me just 1 second. Okay. HUT 8 receives court approval for a stalking horse bid for 4 natural gas power plants and the North Bay Bitcoin mine. So if you remember, they got into this battle with Validus, I believe was the name of the energy company. And a lot of people thought they lost that battle. And I tried to tell everybody all along, they didn't really... What they did lose was North Bay got turned off. And so they lost a lot of opportunity. So it was massive opportunity cost. They didn't get to use their machines and mine Bitcoin for that period of time. But this could all end up, and this is not a guarantee. So the court has approved their bid, essentially. Now, the bidding process is not over, so it's not an absolute certainty that they're going to get this. But you'll see, in connection with the stalking horse bid, court has approved the implementation of a sale and investment solicitation process to be carried out by KVS restructuring. Okay, so what's going to happen here is there's a 40 megawatt facility, 110 megawatt facility, 120 megawatt facility, and another 40 megawatt facility. I believe that's 310 megawatts. If this bid goes through and they have the financing for this in place, all of a sudden HUT, instead of being kicked out of there and not being a part of it at all, they're going to own 310 megawatts of infrastructure, of energy infrastructure to mine Bitcoin. So they go on to say, if I can find, essentially, let's see. If our bid to acquire 4 natural gas facilities in the in Ontario totaling 310 megawatts from Validus is successful, we anticipate the strategic addition of these assets would position Hut 8 as a vertically integrated mining operation, allow us to utilize idle infrastructure and machinery, and provide access to energy pricing certainty, right? Because it would be theirs. This is not a deal with somebody else. They would own it, said Hut 8 CEO Jamie Leverton. The facilities are also expected to give us the opportunity to pursue revenue-generating activity, including selling energy to the market, mining Bitcoin, and powering high-demand, high-performance computing applications like AI, which is not only in keeping with our infrastructure-first strategy, but also affords us very compelling flexibility ahead of the halving. So they've got a couple of things going on here. This is 310 megawatts. This has nothing to do with the merger that's going to add 7.5 exahash of Bitcoin mining to them imminently here, if we are to believe them. And you know, we don't know. You know, their initial comment, you know, was that this would have all already been done by now. So we're still waiting patiently for that to happen. But in the meantime, behind the scenes, they've been working on this as well. So you can see, you know, that they could get to 15 exahash here very quickly if things fall in line for them. So am I bullish on Hut 8? I'm a lot more bullish on Hut 8 today than I was even yesterday. So
Oh, yeah. I mean, reading this, yeah.
Let me go back. I think I missed a chat here. I heard something. Got to switch screens.
So they're going to get 80% of this company?
Exactly. So there would be a minority interest partner in this, but they would own 80% of this. This puts them in the driver's seat for a very big piece of a puzzle. Darren Thomas, Super Chat. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated for the Super Chat. Tom, 3 to 5 miners you think have the potential to 10 to 15x. Okay, that's a tough one. Give me a minute to think about that, Darren, and I'll name, I don't know if I can get to 5, but I'll start to tell you some of my highest conviction that I think, you know, 10x is a big, big deal. So give me a few minutes, but I will.
So, Tom, I have a question. More talking about HUD for a second.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can think as we talk about it.
Absolutely.
What? I didn't even know this was existing because I thought their biggest problem was power.
All right, welcome to Talkin Investing.
Their biggest problem was power because they got kicked out of that agreement or whatever.
They got kicked out of this very facility. That they now stand. Well, this is one of the many facilities. So this was the North Bay, which essentially got turned off. They're having some problems.
What type of money they're talking about purchasing these for?
It doesn't say the amount, but it does. I believe this mentions that it's all financed. You know, and this is not going to be. So to be clear, there's a difference. Financing Bitcoin mining machines is a disaster and a nightmare. Right, we've seen that play out. You know, that's my personal opinion. It's also historically, it's a fact. That doesn't mean that that would be true in the future, but this is infrastructure. So, you know, this isn't going to be a 24-month note that runs them over. If they're taking a loan, if they've got financing in place for energy infrastructure that they can use for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever the case may be, that's a completely different situation. This would be leaps and bounds for them if this goes through. Now, like I said, it's not a done deal. Their offer, you know, this process is not over. So this is not a certainty, but obviously they feel they're in the driver's seat here. They have put out several other press releases over time talking about this, but, you know, this is now for the courts to approve this is a big, big step in the right direction. But they're trying to do some difficult, complicated things that take a little bit longer than, you know, just going out and buying the next bunch of Bitcoin miners. So it can be frustrating waiting for this, but if they go the right way, these are going to pay off massively.
Well, this could be one of your 10x. Sorry, just realized that.
I mean, a lot of people may go from saying, you know, have no interest in them to, you know, if they got two big things. If they go 2 for 2, it's going to be a game changer. So
It's
crypto
just
rich.
so- It's just so hard, sorry, to see the market cap at 523 million, but it's not really 523 million. It's really 1,047,000,000 or 46.
So is that what that's run up to now? That's had a big run up.
Yeah,
So, but
that's
all the
huge.
Bitcoin miners have had a big run
Sorry,
up.
but is it now considered one of the biggest miners?
No, they're still. I think that leaves them. And remember, they do have almost 10,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So that's one of the reasons their market cap is where it is. Let me get to Crypto Rich Crypto. He's been a member for 1 month, so he left a member chat. With public companies' accounting standards changing in 2024, do you think we will see increased institutional investments directly in Bitcoin in 2024? My answer to that is yes. I think there's several different things that are going to happen. You know, this one's already a certainty. The accounting for Bitcoin right now is a nightmare, and it's almost prohibits any reasonably large company from putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet based on what it would do to their quarterly reporting and annual reporting. Well, they're going to the accounting change that's already been agreed upon essentially is going to switch Bitcoin. Instead of being treated as an intangible asset, which to me never made any sense. Now, I know this is a relatively new thing, and that's where all this started for whatever reason, but it's going to be treated more like every other investment, in that you would own in the marketplace. And there's going to be companies that right now, so most companies, the way it works right now, as intangible assets, you have to continue to write them down, and you never get to write them back up. So for companies that have been holding on, let's say you were holding Bitcoin in the FTX situation last November, that Bitcoin's still on your balance sheet right now for $15,000. You're not allowed to write it back up. So that includes, by the way, like 140,000 Bitcoin that MicroStrategy owned. They have those on their balance sheet for $15,000. So when they implement this, depending on where Bitcoin is, MicroStrategy's market cap could go up $3 billion in 1 day. So that day is coming. And when that happens, there will be other. So in conjunction with that, you're going to have ETFs. So that the other thing is, I just think big companies are going to be hesitant to go out and have to go through crypto exchanges, get crypto wallets. This is not something that, remember, they have a broad spectrum of investors. And there's still a very, very, very small group of people that really understand cryptocurrency, Bitcoin wallets, crypto exchanges. So for them to have to get involved in that, but if they change the accounting rules, and in addition to that, there's an ETF, because every investor understands an ETF. Most investors in the big firms already have money in one or multiple ETFs. So if there was a Bitcoin ETF, all these things put together, to me, are gigantic catalysts. And once they happen, like, you can't unring that bell. That's the way it's going to work from that moment forward. So, yeah, I do think those are big catalysts. So that's why I think we will have our next bull run, in my opinion, in Bitcoin, where we take out our all-time high rather substantially. Now, I don't think it's going to be like it was in the old days. In the first couple of cycles of Bitcoin, there were 20Xs for Bitcoin, 40Xs. I don't see that happening. But, from 69,000, if we were to 2X or 3X or 4X, I think that's all extremely reasonably possible. And those are the circumstances where, somewhere in maybe 2020, early 2025, you could have Bitcoin miners that have easily 10x'd by then.
Wow.
Oh, we're at your 80-20 rule, George. So let's end this poll. Will Bitcoin hit 40K by the end of the year 2023? 80% say yes. 20% say no. So I think in general, we are bullish here. I'm in the yes column as well. I don't get to vote, but I would say yes. Unmodded Jeff said 300 megawatts is good for 10 exahash. So I believe I compared to Riot's last 400 megawatts they'll have, where they said that should turn out to about 15 exahash. Right. So this is big, gigantic news if this goes in their direction. There's no doubt about it. Now, it's not a done deal, so that's also important to remember. David saying, I have very little faith in Hut 8's management. They still haven't completed the merger yet. All that story says is that they are allowed to bid. It's far from a done deal. So I agree. That is not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. Wes K asked, does the accounting standard change before or after the halving? I'm not sure when adoption kicks in for that accounting standard. And not everybody's going to, there'll be early adopters, and it's somewhere in that time frame.
Wowza.
Barry is saying, I'd be surprised if any management could have moved the merger quicker. Most of the weight is not up to Hut. So that is always true. The one thing that I would say maybe they should have done better. Hold on. Let me get back to the Bitcoin screen here while we're talking. The one thing that they maybe could have done better, sometimes it's about setting expectations. And they probably were a little optimistic in this, end of September that they had initially talked about. I would always rather them, whatever they think it is, add 2 months. And if you beat it, then it's a surprise to the upside. So that probably was their most, latest information on what they thought was going to happen. So it's of no surprise to me that it's taking longer. But I understand, it hasn't happened till it happens. So, people start to get impatient, and that's natural. JR is saying, didn't Hut allude to the probability selling Bitcoin from the treasure chest a while back? I have paid very close attention, and to my knowledge and everything I've read, and I think I've read everything, but you guys can double check me. Jamie's been extremely specific. They are not selling their Bitcoin, period. And that doesn't mean never until the end of time. But they've talked about Bitcoin, hitting 6 figures. And at some point, when Bitcoin's done what it's going to do, they may start to sell their Bitcoin. But their HODLing Bitcoin is, I would say, their number one value as a company. So I don't, let me know if anybody actually finds anything where they see that. But everything that I've ever seen Jamie say, and the multiple times we've talked to Sue directly, they've been quite clear they're not selling their Bitcoin, period. Again, that doesn't mean never for all time, but not in this price range. Even at 100,000, talking to Sue, that was, they weren't necessarily even high on doing that.
Tom, there's one thing bad about being in the north. It's cold.
It's cold. It's cold most places right now. It's that time of year. It's getting colder. Let's see. We're at 83 likes.
84.
84. If anybody is willing to, if you enjoy the stream, if you could do us a favor and smash the like button, it makes a massive, massive difference for the stream in real time. So it is much appreciated. Also, if you're not a member, if you're not a subscriber and you enjoy the content and you enjoy George and Tom's conversation here every Friday, also several videos per week, consider subscribing to the channel. It is free. We just reached 15,000 subscribers this last week. So thank you to all 15,000 people. I know you're all not watching right now, but thanks to everybody for subscribing and following along, and for your views and likes and comments. We have we have a very interactive group. We have a very knowledgeable group. We have a thoughtful group. So, I try to read all the comments. I can't respond to every single comment. I do try to respond to every single member's comment. So if you're interested, we do have a membership. It's only $5 a month. It's got to be the cheapest membership out there. And you don't have to join some third-party organization. It's right through YouTube. So right next to the subscribe button, there is a member button. So you can hit that and you can become a member. We have a bunch of videos that are members-only content. We have a members-only live stream every Tuesday after the market closes. So every Friday we have a live stream for the world. But every Tuesday we have a members-only live stream. We do talk about some other more detailed things on the members-only live stream. Some things that, might hurt us in the algorithm if we were to talk more openly about. So it's a little more, but we're in depth. In addition to that, on those live streams, the members get to pick a company for me to do a deep dive on, and that content is also for members only. So if you're interested, feel free. We're glad to have you. Otherwise, feel free to just subscribe and follow along. It's much appreciated. Enough said. I see Donnell, pardon me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Outside of yesterday, these miners have sucked. So I understand that sentiment. Let's go to our chart and just take a look and see what the miners have done for us lately. Because this has been a rough, just about 100 days. Darren said, congrats on 15K subs. Thank you, Darren. We waited patiently. Our trip from 14,000 to 15,000, that's the longest 1,000 subscribers it took out of all 15,000. So for whatever reason, I think it has a lot to do with, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners struggling. But thanks for everybody for sticking with us. We try very, very hard to give value-added content here. Okay, so to follow up on that comment, in the last 15 weeks, this does not include this week. So the 15 weeks prior to this week that we just had, you're going to see, and that is through back to July 14th. July 13th, Thursday, July 13th, was the previous 2023 high for Bitcoin, somewhere around $31,800. So since then, you can see as of last Friday, Bitcoin was up 12%. So it took out its high for the year and hit new highs. At the same time, we always have in purple the NASDAQ. And the reason for that is lately, the Bitcoin miners seem to be a little bit more tied to the activity in the NASDAQ than in Bitcoin. But so you're going to see Bitcoin's up 12% in 15 weeks. The NASDAQ's down 10%. That's one of the reasons I do think, it's 15 weeks is not enough of a sample to definitively say that, these two things have gone their separate ways. But I do think there's a lot of evidence that Bitcoin's doing its own thing right now. And I think there's a lot more catalysts to come where I think Bitcoin is going to drastically outperform the equity markets over the course of the next year and a half. My personal opinion, not financial advice. But to get back to these Bitcoin miners suck, over the last 15 weeks, that's kind of right. You're going to see this is what the Bitcoin miners did since the previous all-time high. And remember, we've now taken out that all-time high. So you would think the Bitcoin miners would be higher, but no, they're not. Most of these, I'm not even going to count Core Scientific, but DMG, which is a nano-cap company, they're down 32%. CIFR's the best performer by far, really. CIFR's the third largest by market cap. They're down 32%, and they're the big winners. So that's how bad this 15-week period was. Most of these are more in the neighborhood of down 50%, while Bitcoin's taken out and made a new high for the year. These Bitcoin miners have pulled back 50%. So what that means is, and why I'm sticking with this, if the Bitcoin miners were to make up for lost ground, they would have to double just to get back to their high for the year 2023. And remember, Bitcoin's already blown by its high for the year 2023. So I think there's lots of room left to the upside. This has been massive underperformance. It's been brutal holding these stocks. I know a lot of you have held these stocks. I've continued to dollar cost average into some of these that I think are lagging, that I think ultimately are going to be winners. But you're going to see these get uglier and uglier. TerraWolf's down 68%. Mawson's down 71%. BitDeer's down 73%. That is our members only deep dive, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but for the members, I'm in the middle of my deep dive for that, and there's some specific information going on there. But you can see across the board, this is what's happened in the last 4 months, and it has not been pretty. Now, this week was much, much better. And I will also say, even if we look at last week almost all the Bitcoin miners were green. Yes, there were a few to the downside. You know, a lot of people are asking about Any. Any got wrecked last week. It was down 15% in a week where Bitcoin had its best week of the year, up 14%. So, you know, that's a big difference. But most of the miners were green last week. Still not green enough for the leveraged play and for the risk that you have to take to invest in these. You expect better returns than this on a week where Bitcoin had a gigantic breakout. But what I would say is at least they were all green. That's a step in the right direction. This week, when I do the update this weekend, it's going to be even by far better than this for a lot of the miners. We did have some nice breakouts, so I'm hoping we're in the middle of a trend reversal and that, you know, we start to see these Bitcoin miners do some of the catching up that I think, you know, they're due or overdue on here. Let's get rid of this yellow line because it's not meaningful. Did I end that? Did I end the last poll? I did. So
Oh, it's time for a new poll?
it's time for a new poll. And that poll is
Where's Jeff been?
that's a good question.
Yeah, guess he doesn't like us anymore. He was probably our youngest person. He left.
I think he's got a work conflict with this live stream. That's what I believe, because he still leaves comments all the time on the YouTube
Isn't
videos.
it sad? Like I notice, like certain people are gone that normally watch the stream, and it's like family, you know, and it's like, oh, I wonder where he is. Sorry.
Darren, I will talk about that. That's a good question. Marathon's new methane landfill power source. That was a press release that came out. I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, but sometime very recently.
You know why I'm shaking my head, right?
Why?
They could just buy SDIG.
Well, different. This is they're doing something specific, and it's kind of a test. You know, they're not.
Yeah, but
they haven't rolled it out full. This is a little bit of a test.
But you know what I'm saying. It's if you buy SDIG, you have your little environmental thing that you need to talk about.
I'm going to mispronounce this name, but Krutz said thanks for the stream.
Kruger ants. You know.
that could be. Thanks. He said thanks for the stream. You are welcome. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for being a member.
We can thank him for the 100th vote, for the 100th like, since we got to 100. Yeah.
We just got to our 100. All right, fantastic. Thank you everybody for 100 likes. And just
so
because we're at 100 doesn't mean you have to
answer the question.
On the 10x.
3 to 5. Yeah, the 10x. 3 to 5.
I will.
You ready?
I haven't.
You
forgotten.
ready?
You got your list?
No. But I know. I mean, I know 3 off the top of my head.
Go ahead.
And I think they're all 3 will 10x.
Okay, and then we'll talk time frame.
But it's really simple though. This is real easy. I took the 3 largest: Marathon, Riot, and Cleanspark.
Aha! I have a different list than you.
Well, and Cleanspark. The one that I'm nervous about is Marathon, but I think it can pull a 10x. I mean, Tom, it's already basically pulled a 10x before.
Marathon and Riot have pulled a lot more than a 10x before.
Yeah.
Much, much, much more than a 10x, like a 70x. But they were at very, very low numbers.
Fever, what do you mean? Does SDIG mine over 1,000 Bitcoins every month? No. I think they're lucky if they mine 100.
They're getting better and better at mining. We'll go through their
Yeah.
numbers. Will Bitcoin miners outperform Bitcoin for the rest of the year? So Bitcoin has been outperforming the Bitcoin miners for the second half of this year for 4 or 5 months now. You know, there's 3 or 4 things. If you were invested straight up in Bitcoin, you did a lot better than if you were invested in the Bitcoin miners. If you were invested in MicroStrategy, you did a lot better. If you were invested in Grayscale, you did a lot better. So what's going to happen? What do you guys think is going to happen the rest of the year? Is that trend going to continue? Or is it time? Is it the Bitcoin miners' time?
And the only reason Marathon's like using meth gas is about the environment. We all know this. That's why I said they should just buy SDIG. It's about, helping the environment. And that's the whole reason that, their little shtick.
All of these companies have to, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners really got roughed up pretty good over the last
The dirty
couple of
miners.
years. Right, on the 3 letters that we're not allowed to say that have to do with, being environmentally friendly, etc. So, to some extent, it's the responsibility of management to respond to that and show that they are being environmentally responsible and to try to change the narrative on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And I think I think they're starting to have some success at that. I think that is another catalyst that we're only at the beginning stages of. I think I think that narrative's going to go away in the next 1 year. And I'm going to do something real quick.
Thanks, Steven. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Crypto. I think Marathon should buy Stronghold. Just because that's the only way they're going to make it.
If you give me a second, George, if you got anything on your mind, I'm just trying to do one thing real quickly.
Oh, I'll just I don't read your questions, but I'm answering them as they come out. George, I don't totally agree. This is all about totally off-grid power source that's eco-friendly. Maybe you need to go, Darren, you should probably go watch the video on Stronghold. Go to their website and learn about their company. And I think you'll see why I'm saying they should buy them. Because they're totally off-grid, 100% off-grid, and they are doing something to clean up the environment. And I think that, you see, it's even you who are in crypto or in miners don't even understand I think Stronghold has one of the best messages out there of what Bitcoin can do and Bitcoin mining farming can do to help the environment. And I think that's why I don't want to see that company go out of business, is because I think it's really good for what they're doing, especially for the people in Pennsylvania. They'll tell you about how much they're helping clean up the water. It's really a great idea. And, I mean, that helps the environment.
Their company is 100% essentially an environmental project.
Yeah,
They have an
right.
environmental disaster. And I don't mean that figuratively. It's a literal disaster. Yeah. And their company is... Now, they have a business model. They're a publicly traded company. They have an obligation to try to earn a profit, and failing to do so, could be their demise potentially. But just, to George's point, what they do is cleaning up an extremely large toxic waste site.
From New York City, by the way. You notice they don't talk about that?
Well, and it's in Pennsylvania.
It came from New York City.
It came from a lot of places.
It came from, come on. He came from New
Pennsylvania
York
did a
City.
monumental amount of
Yeah.
coal mining.
Yes.
So, and remember, this is a lot of this is 50 years old, 70 years old, 100 years old. You know, the process of coal mining has changed. It's a lot cleaner than it used to be. You know, as far as the rest of the, you know, this is not about CO2 emissions. All the rest of the toxic waste that used to occur, you know, that process has totally changed. But they're still left with, what did we do the math? It was just short of a 500 billion tons of toxic waste. So somebody's got to clean that up. Or it would be nice if somebody cleaned that up. Let's say that.
Darren, I totally agree. It's a dumpster fire. It's going out of business if we don't have a really big pump in Bitcoin.
Yes, Darren's mentioning I did for members. For those of you who are members and you want to know more about that company, I did just recently do a deep dive explaining the ins and outs of that. And it's a fascinating company. And if they don't do it, somebody's going to buy them and do it in a different way that, you know, is a part of something that's profitable, I would imagine. We'll see. Who knows? All right, to get back to the original question, things most likely to 10x, if I go to the list. So I'm talking about most likely and soonest. And the reason that I would not put
Most
Marathon
likely.
and Riot at the top of my list, even though I think both of those have a strong chance. Right, Marathon's under $10, so its all-time high, I think, was $87 and change. So if it got back to just a little bit above its all-time high, it would pull a 10x.
Right.
So I do think that's going to happen. I think it's going to take a little bit longer. Some of these, here, let me go to this chart.
They have good brand recognition in the investment world.
Absolutely, but this is already paying off. So this is a chart of market cap as of last Friday. So I update these every weekend. So, you know, by Friday, they're 1 week old. These numbers are not perfect. So, you know, go do your own due diligence if you want to know what the exact market cap of any of these companies are. But these were essentially correct a week ago. So you can see from a market cap standpoint, Marathon and Riot are already, you know, 7 or 8 times the size of most of the Bitcoin mining companies from a market cap standpoint. So in order for Riot to 10x, they got to become basically a $20 billion company. In order for, let's just say, Bitfarms to 10x, they have to become a $3 billion company. So, you know, there's a lot more room for growth for some of these companies that really haven't made their run. Now, Marathon and Riot do have a lot more, and they have very different business models. Marathon and Riot have very different business models. They have always had a very similar market cap, but for different reasons. They have the largest and third largest HODL positions, so that's one thing that they have sort of in common, although even at third largest, Riot's is just about half of what Marathon's is. I was very disappointed with Marathon's HODL that they did this month in the press release that they just put out. I think a lot of people were extremely surprised to see what CleanSpark did. They had been HODLing almost all their Bitcoin for months now, and they got away from that completely this month. So, you know, I've been looking at, I'll sidetrack myself. I think I got to switch to this chart. I've been talking about the fact, you know, CleanSpark 4 months ago had about 500 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They have over 2,000 now. Had they continued along that path, I thought they could get to 5 or 6 or 7,000 and, you know, put themselves in what would then clearly be just 4 companies, 4 of the Bitcoin mining companies that are HODLing Bitcoin. Bit Digital's in no position to dramatically increase this number. Bitfarms is in no position to dramatically increase this number. You know, these companies could get to 1,000, but they're not going to get to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8,000. CIFR doesn't even want to. CIFR actually sold more Bitcoin than they mined this month, so they're actually heading in the other direction. And DMG, if they hodled every Bitcoin from now until the halving, wouldn't even get anywhere near 1,000. So it's really just down to either 3 or 4 companies that will have a strong HODL position at the halving for Bitcoin. So, you know, as Bitcoin makes a run, obviously that's one piece of the puzzle that's going to help increase their stock price and their market cap, right? If you've got 10,000 Bitcoin on your balance sheet and Bitcoin triples, that makes a big difference versus the companies that don't have those HODL positions. And just
drum roll.
Oh, for the companies?
Yeah, you still haven't said anything.
10x, I will say, even though CleanSpark is the 4th largest by market cap, I think they're gonna, of the bigger companies, I think they'll be the first one to 10x. So that would be the one that I think gets there first. Of the smaller companies, a lot of these companies, here's my concern: Argo Blockchain, DMG, DigiHost, Gree, Stronghold, Any, Mawson. I'm not sure these companies are even going to be around, never mind 10x. Some of them might be, so there may be a few that rise out of this other list over here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow.
So these 7 companies are staring a different equation. They just, and the reason is they just haven't scaled up enough. So when the halving occurs, you got to cover your overhead, and you got to have a certain amount of overhead to exist as a company. So the math is not great for these companies. That doesn't mean they can't survive. I'm not writing all these companies off, but I don't think they're most likely to 10x. Now, if they do survive, you know, it's for let's say Gree turns the corner. They're a $35 million company. All they have to do is get to $350 million. That would still make them a very small Bitcoin miner from a market cap standpoint, and they will have 10x. So if a company can come out of this list, if somebody feels strongly about one of these companies, then there's your easiest 10x, because these companies can 10x and still be a, you know, micro cap stock. So Bitfarms, I have a high level of conviction in. A 10x only gets them to $3 billion. I think Bitfarms will 10x. Who else would I pick? You know, it's a 10x is an awful lot. And I'm in my mind, I'm sitting here talking about maybe, you know, a 3-year time frame. So if we're talking about 5 years or 10 years, I would add a lot more to the list. So I
forgot about Bitfarms, by the way, and I'll tell you what, 10x on a Bitfarm is $1.17. That would be $11.70.
Right. So if they can get themselves to 10 or 11 bucks, they've basically 10x'd.
They could be the first person to do it, honestly.
This is why, you know, there's a lot of factors. So these are, it would be a lot easier to say DigiHost, you know, at $36 million, if they just get to $360 million, they've 10x'd. So again, if you think there's a winner in here, I'm very skeptical that there's any winners on this list. And that doesn't mean I don't think some of these won't maybe 2 or 3x, because we'll get runs and everyone will be the beneficiary. But to 10x, I think you will have had to made it through the halving. You will have had to proven out your business model, and you're going to have to be on the path to success. So that's the difference between a 3x that, you know, a high tide rises all boats, and a 10x, which is a sustainable situation. And so I think those are probably my 2 highest conviction. HUT.
I need a third.
HUT is not, because remember, their market cap's going to double through the merger. So I can't say HUT. I'm not going to say BitDeer, although I do think they're going to 10x, and I have warned everybody, and I'm not invested in this, and I'm probably not going to invest in this, but I think they could very easily 10x. All right, if I got to pick my third, then George, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say Riot.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I'm agreeing with George.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say Riot. And then I'll tell you, eventually, and it's going to take a little longer, I do think Iris Energy is a 10x. So I know, a lot of people are mad at me for my position on Iris Energy. I think it's going to take a little longer based on what they're doing, but I think they're going to get where they're going. I think their stock's going to be brutal to invest in for a period of time in the middle. That's my personal opinion. But I do think ultimately when they get where they're going and Bitcoin gets where it's going, so to me that could be 2.5 years from now, I think that'll be a 10x.
Just so you know, I put it in the document.
Oh, you're going to keep track of these?
Yeah, I'm keep track of these, yeah.
10x is a lot. And I do think that we're going to... Now, if you ask me 7 years from now, then I would add a bunch more to this list. And Marathon could 10x. My issue with Marathon is I need them to prove that they can reduce their cost per coin. Because they have amongst the highest cost per coin. And a lot of you may say, and this may end up being true, if Bitcoin gets to $180,000, $220,000 a coin, then this cost per coin situation for Marathon is going to be not very important. But if Bitcoin's at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, then it does make more of a difference. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. It's a tough question. A 10x is a monster move. I am very bullish on the Bitcoin miners, but you can see I do think there's going to be winners and losers. There's 18 or 19 of these on my list. I don't think you're going to get 15 10x's. That's my opinion. Also, by the way, a company doesn't, a 5x is a grand slam home run in a 2 or 2.5 year period, in my opinion. So, for the companies that 5x or 6x, I'm going to be absolutely thrilled with that performance. But yes, I do expect 10x's.
Yeah, that was a good one, Stephen. What about Core?
Here's my issue with Core Scientific. Until I do a deep dive and until they come out of Chapter 11, I don't really know what's going to happen to their existing shareholders. Right now, remember, if you own Core Scientific, you don't really own the Core Scientific that was traded on the NASDAQ. You own CORZQ, which is an over-the-counter version of them in Chapter 11. So they still have to... They've made big progress on this, and I did not read through the documents from cover to cover. And even if I do, I'm still not sure we're going to know exactly what's going to happen to the equity holders. Because remember, out of everybody everywhere, absolute last place are equity holders. So somebody earlier said they made a lot of money on Core Scientific, and they are right, and congratulations. Let me show that chart because it's a fair point. Let me go to the... So if you look this is year to date starting January 1st. So if you got in earlier, it's actually more than this, but they're up 805% year to date through last Friday. So if you came into the year with a position in Core Scientific, you could easily be up 800 or 1,000% right now. There's your 10x right there. So Core Scientific's already 10x'd. So I guess that's the first one. Having said that, I am concerned that when this converts back to a publicly traded company and gets reissued on the NASDAQ as, new Core, the existing shareholders could get beat up in that process. I don't know. I'm not saying they're going to. That is what is typical of a company that comes out of Chapter 11. But that doesn't mean that's going to happen here. I just don't know the answer. It's a mystery.
So, okay, guys, you want the stupidest stock player ever done in the history of time? Remember last Friday, I said, I'm really nervous about the market this week. I'm really, I'm going to short it. Well, I talked to Tom on Friday. We did it last Friday. And what I did was I bought the wrong things, and I ended up longing the market. And it was $200. Was it $600 or $200?
You accidentally bought calls instead of puts.
Yeah, I bought calls instead of put, and I think I spent like I think it was $500 what I spent. That $500 became almost $3,000. So, FYI, just because I thought it was going to be down, that's how I trade.
George went in to make the trade thinking he was going to be upset that, shoot, I thought I shorted the market, not actually short, but through puts, he thought he had shorted the market, assuming it's going to go down, only to find out in his account was a bunch of calls.
Right.
I think it was, can I say which ticker it was, George?
It's the TQQQ, yeah.
Right. It was the TQ. So that's triple X, the Qs, which is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ had a great week, so those went through the roof.
That was awesome. I stayed in the money, too. I didn't go out of the money.
That's right. George accidentally made a bunch of money. So, congratulations.
So, beers are on me, guys.
That's one that worked out. Sometimes things just work out.
You just have to find out where I am. I'm in Atlanta. I'll give you that.
There's a hint. It's a pretty big place. All right, let's see. Will the Bitcoin miners outperform Bitcoin for the rest of 2023? That is the question. So it's fluctuating. 72% say yes. The Bitcoin miners will outperform Bitcoin. So, and the reason we asked this question is over the last 15 weeks, the opposite's been true. The Bitcoin miners have lagged substantially. So the question is, are they going to play catch up now, or is this trend just going to continue? So we're a pretty bullish group here. It seems that the Bitcoin miners, it's going to be their turn. Now, having said that, still 30% think that no, they're still not going to get there, and I suspect this has a lot to do with the impending effects of the halving, which is getting closer and closer and closer. I think we're like 5.5 months away from the halving. So obviously, the economics for Bitcoin miners is going to take a big hit at that time. So the question is that already priced in, or is there more pain to come? We also have to keep our eye on the overall network exahash rate and how that affects the difficulty level. Although technically, while those are correlated, that's not how the difficulty level is determined. But the difficulty level is at an all-time high, and it keeps going up almost every 2 weeks. They adjust that, and almost without exception, it continues to increase and set a new all-time high difficulty level. So, it's a double whammy. The Bitcoin difficulty level has more than doubled in about a 14-month window of time. So you've got that going against the Bitcoin miners. Adding to that, the fact that the reward's about to get cut in half. These are some of the reasons that the Bitcoin miners have probably lagged Bitcoin. And this is probably why 32% of you out there think that, maybe that trend is going to continue. I think it's going to be winners and losers. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more. And I do think I started to put together this schedule. Let me show you what I got, but I did not finish. So there's a bunch.
Leave in 9 minutes, just so you know.
All right, you got it. There's a bunch of Bitcoin miners that have announced when their next quarterly earnings report are going to come out. Now, today is the 3rd, so Monday's the 5th. So Tuesday, you're going to get Bitfarms in the morning. Wednesday, you're going to get CIFR in the morning. Also Wednesday, you're going to get Marathon in the afternoon. The following Monday, you're going to get WULF after the market closes. And Tuesday, you're going to get HUT before the market opens. That's where my research ended. I ran out of time. So there's a lot of information coming at us. And, Riot has not put out a press release. So theirs will come in this time frame. They just have not put out a press release as to exactly when that is. And actually, the last couple of times that they did put out a press release, that ended up not being the day that they made their that they did their press conference anyway. So, but that's coming as well. So we're going to get an awful lot of information in the next 2 weeks. In addition to the fact that we're going to get all of the October operational reports, we're going to get all the quarterly reports. So the picture keeps getting clearer and clearer. And with all this information, I do think we're going to start to get a bigger difference in the price action on some of these Bitcoin miners. And just to show you guys, let's take a look at this chart. This is how the miners have performed for the year through last Friday. So you can see the market's already started to pick winners and losers. In what is just about the first 10 months of the year, you've got a few Bitcoin miners down here. Mawson's down 48% on the year, while Bitcoin's doubled. Any, which is Sphere 3D, is down 47%, while Bitcoin's doubled. Stronghold's down 13%. Argo Blockchain just last week finally got into the green, but they're up 8% versus over 100%. So, those are really, really lagging. But I would also submit to you that the market is worried. WULF is up 68%, GREE is up 69%. That's a pretty significant lag on even being a one-to-one move for Bitcoin on the year. So I do think the market's worried about these two as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think the market's particularly worried about. But DMG's only up 89%. CleanSpark's only up 103%. I will give you, and not to make excuses, this is one of my high conviction plays. This is one of my bigger holdings. But CleanSpark diluted massively over the course of the last year and a half. They weren't quiet about it. It wasn't a secret. It was a plan. It was a well-announced plan. But they are now through that. So I think one of the reasons that they lagged all year this year and they're only on par with Bitcoin is, while their stock's only up 103%, their market cap's up significantly more than that on account of the dilution that they've done. But that dilution is going to get them from coming into the year at around 6 exahash. They're looking at being at 16 exahash by the end of the year. That may trickle into January. And then they just did another purchase order for 4.4 exahash of the latest and greatest S21s that will get them over 20 exahash. So other than that last 4 exahash, they came out and said they're fully funded to 16 exahash. They do expect to be there in the next 2 to 2.5 months. So I think you're going to see, whereas this lagged behind, that's my personal opinion. That's why I'm in CleanSpark. That's my CleanSpark thesis. So not financial advice. If you'd been in this all year, you'd have been better off in CIFR, which is up 493% this year. So, but I try to look for opportunities. So to me, I view this as an opportunity. But again, I certainly am not telling anybody to buy this, not financial advice. But that's what I think is going on there. And if you think one of those, of the 6 or 7 that I just mentioned, if you think there's another company that, the underlying performance where good things are happening, the market just, for whatever reason, whether it's stock dilution or some other reason, the market has not picked up on it yet, then, maybe there's a big opportunity in here somewhere. I'm worried about most of these, but you never know. Will Bitcoin miners out? So this is getting closer and closer and closer. Will Bitcoin miners outperform Bitcoin for the rest of the year 2023? We are now at 65% yes, 35% no. So I'll end it there. That's about, 2/3, 1/3. So pretty split on that. That's not a runaway by any stretch of the imagination. I think this has a lot to do. Ironically, I think the better Bitcoin does, the higher the probability that the Bitcoin miners outperform Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's only up, 3 or 4 or 5% between now and the end of the year, or even if it's down a little, I think that's likely to have an exaggerated effect on the Bitcoin miners. If Bitcoin has a 15% run, I think that it's much more likely the Bitcoin miners will outperform Bitcoin in that scenario. So I think that's going to happen. I think we have a nice run, especially for, the Bitcoin miners that are having quality monthly operational updates, that have quality quarterly 10Qs that are coming out over the next couple of weeks. So we'll end that poll. if you have not watched, if you have any interest, I did just do a Bitfarms video. So if you haven't seen that, you can check that out. I did a deep dive on what Bitfarms has going on. They've got a lot going on. They did, as always, on the first business day of the month, Bitfarms puts out their monthly operational report for the previous month. So they're usually the first deep dive that I do on a monthly basis. More to follow, of course. Darren's saying only playing calls on Mara and Riot. All the other spreads aren't friendly and they have little to no volume. Yeah, Marathon and Riot definitely by far have the most volume on their options and on the stock itself. And oftentimes they have high premiums set into them. And, you know, if you play those right, I know a lot of you guys do very well in some options strategies. So
Even me.
that's right, exactly. Shoot the Moon said I'm like 45% all in CleanSpark.
I'm gonna sneak out.
All right, George.
Chance is a realtor. 18 years old. And he
Hey.
passed his board today, so he's all excited. So we're going to have chocolate cake
Tell him I said
at the
congratulations.
hibachi restaurant. Hibachi.
Ah, nice.
We'll see you guys.
Enjoy. Have a great weekend, George.
Yeah, I'll probably be listening in the car, so
All
talk about me.
right.
Yeah.
You got it. See ya. All right, let me switch. Let's see. I think that's how I do that. Okay, so thanks to George. Simon said there's a high short interest in Marathon. Mr. J said peace. You know, I got to do a video on the short interest in all these because there's a high short interest in an awful lot of these Bitcoin miners still. There's a high short interest in a lot of these small cap high growth stocks. And some of that, you know, we're going to see what just happened. Some of what happened this week, some of these explosive moves to the upside, I do think had a lot to do with shorts getting out and, you know, taking their profits before, you know, they get burned. So I do think that was a big factor this week on a lot of these things that skyrocketed. The activity yesterday across the board was a very rare day. That was exceptional performance. Hold on, let me get another poll going. We got some more questions. Then I got a bunch of other stuff I haven't even gotten to. So I want to talk about a few of the other big things that are going on this week. Take a look at a few of the Bitcoin miners that did put their monthly operational reports out. And there was some surprises in some of these. So, you know, just when you think you know what's going on, I'm still continued to be surprised by certain monthly operational updates. Just typing up the next poll. Sorry for the silence, guys. I'm just typing. Almost done. Okay, so, and then I want to talk, and I'm going to show some data on this one. But first, let me ask the question. Will the Fed raise rates again? And that means at all. Are they going to raise rates again in this cycle at all? Or is the next move... Oh, I got to redo this. Sorry, guys. I didn't word this properly because it's not a yes or no. Well, I guess we can use this as a yes or no. So, yes. Will they raise rates again? Yes or no? And then I'm going to let this go for a minute, and then I'm going to show you what's built into the futures because it changed drastically in the last 2 days. Obviously, the Fed just had their meeting a couple of days ago. They did not raise rates. I thought they were much more dovish, as they call it. I thought Jerome Powell, as usual, was going to try and spook the market, and we were going to get a big, short-term knee-jerk reaction, tanking the market. We didn't really get that, and the reason for that, in my opinion, was he didn't really talk scary talk. I was really surprised at what he had to say, and his answers, and I think, just the words he used, without saying it, I think he came out and said, there's no more rate hikes. I came away with that very strong impression. So I'll be interested to know what you guys think. Okay, let's see. Darren's saying I can't answer your poll. I did this as a yes or no, but so I guess it's all the same. It's all the same. I think we got to take the poll as, will the Fed raise rates again? Yes or no? And then, if not, obviously, then the next thing they're going to do. So even if you don't think they're going to lower them in 2024, let's interpret this poll as, will the Feds raise rate again? And that's the rest of 2023, 2024, or is it over? Is this cycle over? By the way, this was the most vicious rate hikes in the history of the Fed. It's not the highest they've ever raised rates to. We have had rates higher than this, and not in a long, long, long time. Most of you probably don't remember the last time, although we have a nice mix of a crowd, so some of you are my age. But, it's been that long. So this was a vicious cycle of rate hikes. I'll tell you right now, I think it's over. Something will have to happen, in my opinion, for this not to be over. I think it's over. Duckman, Stronghold Digital Mining. I will tell you, I did do a members only video on Stronghold. I did do a deep dive on that. I don't think there's enough interest for a deep dive video for the rest of the world, but I will tell you, I'm concerned about Stronghold. So I'm just concerned, financially speaking, their margins are not great. Their cash flow, is not fantastic. So I don't hold a position in Stronghold. Not financial advice. That doesn't mean you shouldn't hold a position in it, right? Always remember, everybody, do your own due diligence, because, it's your head you got to put on your pillow at night and feel good about these investments. I did make a few changes this week. I sold a few stocks I've been holding on to for a while, and I very rarely sell stocks. I took some profits on one and got rid of a couple of others. So that's a rarity for me. For the most part, I'm just dollar cost averaging in, and most of my stocks haven't gotten to where I think they're going. But sometimes, when you get a big run, I do. For me, I also, just because I'm a buy and hold, you can take some profits along the way. Fed is done scaring us. That's from Ty. Nash V said, I remember 12 to 13%. All right, Nash V, you're dating yourself. Me too. Doesn't mean we're old, because we're not. But that was a long time ago. Wes is saying, I remember 1980, rate was about 20%. Nuts. Yeah, I mean, that's how far back. You got to go back to, you got to go back to Paul Volcker. That's 40 years ago is the last time we had rates that were higher than this. And they were a lot higher than this. But the speed at which they raised the rates and the percentage at which they raised them was not the equal of what just happened right now in this cycle. This was vicious. All right, let me just go to, let's take a quick look here. All right, I know people have very mixed feelings on this. And I did not include this in any of the polls this week, but leave your thoughts in the chat. The Grayscale Bitcoin Trust discount. So this is an article from, I guess, yesterday. Grayscale discount narrows to a 23-month low on ETF conversion hopes. They do show, I think, the Y charts list down here. This is down to 13%. Back here, this was, I don't think it got there, but this was very, very close to 50% discount in January of 2023. So let's see. They do say that right here. Grayscale generally trades at a premium or a discount relative to the net asset value. After trading at a premium through the bull market run of 2021 kicked off, Grayscale's discount to net asset value peaked in late December 22 at nearly 50%. Since then, the discount has shrunk to less than 14%. So this was trading at a 50% discount, and they're saying 50, but I think it was 49 point something. That's not to split hairs. But so, and we talked about this on many, many live streams. Not back here so much, but back here when it was still, I think this was like 43. This was just in July. It was somewhere in the low to mid 40% discount. I didn't do it. I was going to move into this. Talks of the ETF was already heating up quite a bit. And, in theory, this discount should evaporate if the Grayscale Trust is one of the applications that's in to be a Bitcoin ETF. So if and when that happens, this will no longer be a trust. It will be a Bitcoin ETF, and this discount should essentially evaporate to zero. Now, the problem is a lot of this leverage has already gone away. So, you might say, well, it's still worth it at 13%, but there's no guarantees. This could go back down. And some people, I know somebody made a comment, this thing is garbage. I lost a lot of money on this. And unfortunately, a lot of people did lose a lot of money because initially this was trading at a huge premium. If you go back to January of 2021, December of 2020, look at this gigantic premium. So people were actually paying extra to get exposure to Bitcoin. And, 2 years later, that giant premium turned into almost a 50% discount. So if you were holding shares in Grayscale for that period of time, you got decimated. So I understand a lot of people probably never want to touch this again, and they don't even want to talk about it or hear about it because, if you got into this at the wrong time and out at the wrong time, this was brutal. Having said that, the Bitcoin miners had a similar run, if not worse, right? Most of these Bitcoin miners from the top to the bottom were down anywhere from, I think 91% was the best performing Bitcoin miner. By December, and I think December 27th was the low for almost every single Bitcoin miner. There were a few that had a different date than that, but by December 27th of 2022, all the Bitcoin miners were down anywhere from 91% to 99%. So, you know, that's historic level of a beatdown for an entire industry of stock. And that's not just one company that didn't do well. That was all the Bitcoin miners. Now, since then, obviously, we've had a turnaround. Things are moving in the right direction, although the last 4 months, once again, were very rough. So, you know, that's one of the questions we asked on today's, and I think it ended up 65% thought the Bitcoin miners were going to start to recover and outperform Bitcoin for the rest of the year, and still 35% thought, nope, this trend is going to continue, you know, rather be in Bitcoin than the Bitcoin miners. So let's see how this vote is going. Will the Fed raise rates again? So this is pretty close. This is about 1/3, 2/3. So about a third of the people think that, yes, the Fed will raise rates again. I'll leave this up for just a couple more minutes. And so we're now at 35%. Yes, 65%. No, now 66. It's fluctuating. I want to show you guys a chart because this changed drastically. There's the CME Fed Watch tool. So you guys probably are mostly familiar with this. If you're not, this essentially analyzes the futures to see the probability that's built in for a Fed rate hike. So you're going to see, this is now for the December 13th meeting. So we just did the November 1st meeting. So on October 31st, one day before the November 1st meeting, if you looked at this December 13th Fed Watch tool, well, let's look. It should show us down here. It didn't catch the day. This was at like 24%. Just 3 days ago. It was built in that there was about a 24% chance of a rate hike in the next meeting. That has gone down to under a 5% chance. So this goes to my point. I think that people were surprised at what Jerome Powell had to say, and they've drastically reduced their belief that there's a rate hike coming, particularly in the next meeting. Now, I haven't even looked, so I'll do this at the same time with you. Let's go out to the January 31st meeting. So this is another month and a half away of 2024. This is down to 10%. So this was yesterday at 26%, and today it's down to 10%. A month ago, this was at almost 40%. So almost 40, the futures priced in almost a 40% chance of a rate hike by the January 31st, 2024 meeting. That is now down to 10%. So you can see sentiment has shifted drastically and away from the potential for another rate hike. That doesn't mean a rate hike is impossible. Obviously, we know, anything can happen. And a lot of data is going to come out between now and then. So let's say all of a sudden, the number one thing I think that could change this is if CPE, if the inflation data all of a sudden for the next couple of months starts moving in the wrong direction, in a significant way where we see the trend has broken and they're starting to lose control of that, and they feel, they didn't say they're done with their work, but they feel pretty confident that that's moving in the right direction and will continue to move in the right direction. If that changes, that would be the single biggest thing in my mind that would change their mind and say, you know what, even though we desperately don't want to do another rate hike, we got to get, inflation is, part of their dual mandate, and they can't let that run away. So that would be the one thing I think that could potentially change this. But to that end, let me see if I pulled up the article I'm looking for here. Okay, so this is an article. This was the Wall Street Journal, but everybody this information came out this morning. Sharp U.S. hiring slowdown signals cooling economy ahead. So this is exactly what the Fed is looking for. So this would be another reason that those numbers just change. Job report shows employers added fewest jobs since June while the unemployment rate rose. So you're going to see employers added 150,000 jobs in October, half the prior month's gain, and the smallest month increase since June, the Labor Department said on Friday. And the unemployment rate rose to 3.9%. So up a half a point since April. And wage growth slowed. So that's the trifecta. That's everything they wanted to see. I think they were expecting 180,000 jobs. They got 150. Unemployment went from 3.8% last month to 3.9%. So very near 4%. Now, that's still pretty low. So it's not like that's a nightmare number, but the fact that it continues to trend up is what the Fed is looking for. Not because they want people to lose their jobs and they're evil. This is just a part of the equation that these are indicators that make it more likely that inflation is under control and, you know, and that's going to move in the right direction, and they're not going to have to do more rate hikes to get to where they're going. So this can get much, much, much higher. This is the soft landing type of a scenario, and it's not done yet, so we don't know. I don't know what 2024 brings, but, you know, if you could script this, getting up to 3.94, 4.2% unemployment, historically speaking, you know, if that's a peak, that's not bad at all. So, you know, I guess that depends on whether or not you're one of the people that doesn't have a job. But all these numbers seem to be trending in the Fed's favor and allowing them to potentially keep rates down and not have to do any more rate hikes. So I think that's why you're seeing those numbers change like they did on the futures tool. And again, I'll just go back to that quickly. You know, this went from a month ago. This would be one rate hike right here, this column. So a month ago, this was just under 40%. Now it's just over 10%. So that's a drastic decrease. So less and less people are believing there's going to be a rate hike, at least for the next 3 months. These next two meetings are basically the next 3 month window of time. Just to take a quick look, where did that go? Okay. Fear and greed index is still in greed. So you can see a week ago it was 70. Yesterday it was 72. Today it's 65. So this is hanging out in what I think is a very good spot. This is the very low end of greed. There's a lot of room to the upside left here. When Bitcoin goes on its big runs, this gets up into the 80s. It can get even higher than that. So there's a lot of room left to the upside. And you want to be trending in this direction. So, you know, and again, every one of these indicators by itself, you know, I wouldn't hang your hat on and doesn't mean anything in a vacuum. But as you start to add things up, these are some of the reasons I think that even though, you know, if I look at the 1 day, if we look at the 1 day, the daily RSI, 70 is considered overbought. So in other words, at 70, you might start to expect a pullback. Well, we got all the way up to, you know, this was, let's see if I can, you know, almost 88. I have a line at 89.5. We've bumped on this line several times over the course of time. And those were all the times where Bitcoin, you know, was in there at the top of the bull market phase of the cycle, and Bitcoin was having, you know, blow off top type moves to the upside. So although we had a nice move to the upside, you know, rarely have we been way up here for what I consider just more of a normal run in Bitcoin. Now, we're more than a week into this pulling back, And we're still not down to 70, which is still considered overbought. So if you just sit and look at this one window right here, you would think, if you just look at this point alone, you would say, man, probably the next move in Bitcoin is down. We're due for a cool off. We're due for a little bit of a reset on the daily RSI. At the same time, you have the MACD looking, each day looking like it's getting closer and closer to potentially a bearish crossover. So, all these things would tend to indicate that maybe we've peaked. On the flip side, and this is why I hate technical analysis, and that's why I try to look at so many different things, and, no one thing tells the whole story. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of that circle. Some people would argue this. We've got, kind of a really nice bear or bull flag that we're sitting here in the middle of forming. So this would be an extremely bullish pattern. I try to take all these patterns in particular with a grain of salt. So I always mention that. I point them out. I mean, this is a glaring bull flag, but who knows what that means, right? We just saw a few indicators that might be bearish. We see some things that might be bullish. I don't know. But again, I default to the fact that the trend here, since we hit the bottom, in general, the trend has been up. And when it's not up, it's been sideways consolidation. And we did have a bunch of sideways consolidation. So it is possible we're in store for, some period of sideways consolidation. It's also possible what would be much more natural is to at least go down and retest. This was the previous high of the year. Back on July 13th, Bitcoin hit around 31,800 and change. So that was the previous high of the year for 2023. We blew through that in one daily candle. We left that in the dust. We haven't been anywhere near it since. Every single day has closed higher than even that day. So I would not be surprised to see a retest of this. So if the RSI, that would potentially allow the daily RSI to pull back, give us some breathing room, have maybe a bearish crossover on the MACD, do some sideways consolidation, bounce off of this, and then maybe take that run up by the end of the year. There's still plenty of time to do all of that, retest this, and run back up to $40,000. So I don't know that we're going to retest this, but it's certainly, that would be the more normal scenario. So I won't be surprised. I don't want to leave everybody with the impression I think we're just going to run to 40,000 and nothing can stop us. These pullbacks, we've already had 20% pullbacks in the year 2023. So to see a fourth one, nobody should be surprised. Darren, thank you very much. Super chat, $5 super chat. Darren is saying, chat a moment about this. This journey is a 2.5-year marathon. It's not a 2 or 3 month sprint. To many people that are just too focused on the today. So thank you, Darren, for the super chat. And I will talk about that right now. I think we talked a little bit about that on the members only. If not, it may have been just me and George talking about that personally. That's a big, big thing. And everybody gets caught up in it. I get caught up in it, but I try to do what Darren is talking about and reflect on the fact that, listen, it doesn't matter. And I should find, there's a clip that I just watched. I think somebody posted it in our private Discord. Maybe it was you, Darren, that Michael Saylor was talking about this. And he was talking about, people who were trading Apple. They were swing trading Apple at $3 and $5. And, how, in hindsight, how foolish was it, trying to time this to the day or to the week, when from there, Apple's up 1,000%. So did it matter that you got in at $3 or that you got in at $5? And remember, there's been multiple splits. So that run is not from the Apple price that you see today. So the same thing holds true, right? If you're bullish on Bitcoin, in our normal, if the past is any indicator of what's coming, we are not yet even though we've just pulled 100% move to the upside in Bitcoin, this is not the bullish part of the cycle, right? We usually have the bull run, the blow off top, we could be a year away from, maybe more. So, and I see admin saying at Darren S, agree. So yeah, I think this is crucially important. And we all get caught up in it. We talk about price targets, and it's hard not to. And on a bad day, listen, on a red day, we're human beings. Those days don't feel good. We just went through a 3 or 4 month period where the Bitcoin miners didn't do what we hoped they would do. But if you keep that bigger picture in mind, if you're truly bullish on Bitcoin in the long term and you believe in the Bitcoin cycle and you believe there's a bunch of catalysts ahead, and you believe that while we sit here at Bitcoin 35,000, we're asking, is it going to get to 40,000 by the end of the year? Probably the real answer is, who cares? Is it going to get to 400,000 5 or 6 years from now? If the answer to that is yes, then all these other questions, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect us emotionally on a day-to-day basis. And if you're a swing trader, then, God bless you if you're doing well. I find it very hard. The majority of what I do is buy and hold. I do use options sometimes to try to add to my profit making along the way, but that's not the majority of what I do. I see Ross, who's a member, saying 100% Darren. I definitely need to be reminded sometimes. Whenever I go for the quick buck, I lose. It's a long game. Crypto Fever said the biggest monster moves have happened while Bitcoin was extremely overbought on the RSI. So that's a good point. That's why I'm saying, like, any one indicator, and that was Crypto Fever. Thanks for mentioning that. No one indicator tells the whole story. When Bitcoin does its thing, I don't care what the indicators say or what the market's doing. When Bitcoin does its thing, there's no stopping it. So, and we haven't had that yet. And as far as the time in the cycle, it's really not even time for that yet. So if it comes early, if there's some big catalysts like the ETF, like the change in the accounting, who knows what else happens. If we get some, clarity on regulations and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of good things ahead. Ironhead said, good night, folks. Cheers for your time. Tom, George, much appreciated. Thank you, Ironhead. Thanks for being a member. Thanks for being joining us on the stream. Eric said it's been a trader's market for the last 3 years. So for the people that trade, I'm not saying that's not a thing, right? Everybody has different investment strategies, and if you've had success day trading or swing trading, there's certainly people that have done that. But if you're not comfortable with that, if you don't have time, that takes a lot more time. Even if you're a serious retail investor, if you have a full-time job or whatever else the case may be, and you don't have the time to put in to try and do these swing trades or day trades, and you're long-term bullish, a tried and true method has been, just dollar cost average in. And even now, a lot of people are in the green that have just dollar cost averaged in all the way down, even if they were in at Bitcoin 69,000. If they dollar cost averaged in all the way down and have continued to dollar cost average in now, they're already green. And, we haven't even, if things go the way we expect, this is only just the beginning. Edmund is saying there will most likely be time to sell in late 2025 or early 2026. So that's the second side of this equation is once you've had a gigantic runs, then it's time to talk about, is it time to take profits? Is it time to take some money off the table? Is it time to hedge your bets? Because the crypto winners thus far have been absolutely vicious. So, that'll be a conversation for a future day. But yes, that's going to be a very valid conversation if the cycle continues along the next time the way it has the last, so far every single time, And we're very early into this, right? This is only going to be, what, the fourth halving? So Bitcoin just turned 15. The Bitcoin white paper came out 15 years ago this week. So this is still a new phenomenon. We're all still learning. And each one of these is not going to be identical to the previous ones. Wes is saying Congress has a debt decision coming up. Yeah, that's a potential catalyst, and in I don't know what direction out there. Darren's saying sell 500 or so days after the halving. So yeah, we're gonna have to see. I think that's been, and we'll know. I mean, if we were paying attention last time. And last time got a little tricky because we kind of had a double top. We topped in like March or April. We got to 64,000. And then in November, early November, we got to 69,000. So, you know, that we did talk a lot about taking profits. You know, we didn't talk about getting out and running for the hills, but we were talking about taking profits. So, you know, the next time we get to that point in the cycle, I hope we all remember and have this conversation, and you know, we'll see what everything looks like at that point. Edmund is saying, Tom, will you look to sell a lot second half of 2025 to early 2026? If we get the cycle that has repeated, then the answer to that will be yes. And that doesn't mean I'm going to wholesale just get out of everything. One of the things I probably am going to try to do is at the peak, you know, really shift from Bitcoin miners to Bitcoin. And we'll see. I may have already lost that battle. We'll see how the Bitcoin miners have done. And I will be building out my position in, I'm doing several things right now so that you guys know. There's already, and while this doesn't have the same effect on Bitcoin, there's a Bitcoin futures ETF that pretty much tracks Bitcoin. Now, the Bitcoin futures ETF does not need to hold any Bitcoin. So for that reason, it's fundamentally different than the spot ETFs in that it has no impact on the price of Bitcoin. When the spot ETFs come, there's going to be a massive demand to purchase Bitcoin. So that's the real catalyst for these spot ETFs. However, the Bitcoin futures ETF does trade along with Bitcoin fairly close to 1-to-1, and it's not perfect. So, you know, I hold some MicroStrategy. I hold some of that. I hold a lot of Bitcoin miners. You know, the position that I opened fairly recently in MicroStrategy has just decimated my performance in the Bitcoin miners. So, you know, I feel good about that. And I'm probably going to start to switch out of some of that because it's had such a vicious run up recently that, and I'm not going to get out. These are minor moves I try to make. But yes, I will definitely be taking profits, Edmund, if we get back to these, you know, I expect to get well beyond our previous high of 69,000. But when we see all those telltale signs that we're nearing a top of the cycle again, it's only prudent that we make the right changes in our portfolio at that time. So I'm sure I'll be doing that. And obviously we'll have to see. We'll have to get there and see if things play out exactly the same way. But yes, all things being equal, I'll definitely be making some shifts at that point for sure. Shoot the Moon saying, I think it's going from here to 45K nonstop in the next 3 weeks, at the most 5 weeks. Shoot the Moon, I hope you are 100% correct. I think that's entirely possible. But like I just ran through, I do also think, you know, a more normal scenario would be to go down and retest a line of support and then take a big run. So neither one of those things would surprise me. I'm trying to be less and less surprised by anything. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, cryptocurrency, and the market in general, you know, are just very, very unpredictable animals anymore. So, you know, prepare for everything, I guess is what I would say. So let's see what the poll is doing. Will the Fed raise rates again? So I'm going to call it. This is now just about almost exactly at 1/3, 2/3. A third of you think the Fed are going to raise rates. I'm guessing one more time. 2/3 think we're done. So that is the end of that poll. So I'm going to wrap it up. I will save the rest for next week. There will be a lot of the Bitcoin miners put out their monthly operational reports. So I hope everybody stays tuned. Please check out the videos if you would. If you're interested, you know, I think this is a Bitcoin and Bitcoin miner crowd. So I will be putting out a bunch of Bitcoin miner videos. And then I'm probably going to be doing 2 videos this month for several of the Bitcoin miners. So you can drop in the chat which ones you're most interested in, but I know there's Marathon, Riot, and Cleanspark have the most interest as far as the retail investors go by far. I have interest in a few past that. So, you know, as these quarterly reports come out, I'm definitely going to do some more deep dives on top of that. So look for a bunch of videos from me in the month of November. Hopefully everybody had a good week this week. Hopefully you guys made some money. And I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks again if you're a subscriber. Thanks again if you are a member. Special thanks. And so hopefully we'll see you guys in some videos over the weekend. We'll see the members next Tuesday on the members only live stream. And everybody else, have a great weekend. And we'll see you next Friday.